April 23rd, 2013. I'm at my exhibit of Holocaust and Human Rights Art at Seattle Central Community College, and just chatting with some students here, including Clinton, who's a Seattle Central student, and he told me that he's particularly particularly likes this drawing from the Under the Wings of God series with Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi in there. Italian resistance hero Eugenio Curiel, Castel Sant'angelo, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, and more things going on. So I'm curious to hear about your responses to this piece.
Well, it really stood out to me right away, especially because of the different materials that you use, especially with the chicken with the sunglasses. That stood out to me. That's the first thing that I noticed. I really liked that you incorporated something bright that sticks out and with lots of color and vibrant. But at the same time, I like there's the contrast between the dark colors. There's a lot of ink, heavily used ink, especially with your portrayal of Alex Schwarz. I really like
That's actually a linoleum block print, which was square when I printed it, but I cut it out into the shape here. 3 different printings of it.
Yeah.
It fit in really well.
Right.
So, go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, and I love how you incorporated a border and also went out of the boundaries too. Kind of showed.
Like in the matte areas?
Yeah. Took up the whole piece rather than just staying within the borders.
That's a good observation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I liked how you incorporated the dreidels throughout the piece. Those are really nice. They had kind of the touch relating to Alex Schwarz, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly you were thinking, but I was thinking about...
I'll give you a little background, which may not be in the label signature. So I worked as a library clerk for 29 years supporting my art career at the Seattle Public Library. And between 1990 and 99, I was working at the Magnolia branch. And they were library patrons there, so I used to chat with his wife at the checkout desk. And one day she was wearing like a big Star of David, and I said, hi, my name is Akiva. We found out we were both Jewish, and I found out that she was a refugee from Nazi Vienna and had been in what's called a Kindertransport. She had escaped from Nazi Austria right before World War II began and worked like in a countryside estate in Vienna. And then she, after the war ended, her family had been murdered. She moved to the United States and she met Alex in New York. And they had owned a dry cleaning store not far from here, like on Madison, right by Seattle University. There's a dry cleaning store there, and they had. When I met them, they were both retired. They had had a son who had died of MS here, and they invited me over. We became friends, and I had dinner at their apartment in Magnolia a number of times, and then Alex had come to an exhibit I had at the Museum of History and Industry of my work. And he wept on seeing some of the work because his own mother had also been murdered at Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp in Poland. So, but some of my work he didn't understand, which is partly the title, Looked On by Alex from Above and Below, as he tries to comprehend my artwork. Some of the more abstract work was beyond him. He was kind of old European school, old school, and I think kind of more traditional imagery was more. And they're both passed on now, but I have fond memories of them both, even if, as I say, he didn't understand. So I did the linoleum block print the last time I saw him. He had moved back to Vienna after his wife died, after 60 years. Hard for me to believe he had moved back there. And then I visited him there like a year before he died, and I did some drawings in this linoleum block print. So I kind of paid homage to him, and which continues on to this day. So one funny thing that happened, I'll tell the story for the viewers here also, that this is only the second time this work has been exhibited.
Oh, wow.
I had it at a show at PLU in Tacoma in their library in 2002. And I gave a talk to like German language and literature students. It was like a whole group came in. And the other works that were in that exhibit were kind of like these singular black and white drawings. And then there was this, with this long title, an Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, and they looked at me, they couldn't they didn't understand the humor,
Right.
because the Holocaust was the murder of millions of people. They viewed it as like it's like this holy, sacrosanct thing that you can't touch, especially you can't have humor with it. And I didn't make a dent with them. I think they were just completely perplexed.
Right.
So I'm really glad when someone like yourself, a young student, sees it and you pick up on it immediately. It's terrific.
Right. Yeah, I really like that you contrast the humor in it, and then also with just kind of the dark side of what it is in reality. So.
And I mean, as awful as genocides and stuff are, we can't envelop ourselves totally in bleakness, doom and gloom and death. We'd have no hope for the future.
Right.
And plus the fact that humor was used as a day-to-day survival mechanism by people like in the concentration death camps. There's a book on it, at least one, maybe more by now. So for me, using humor, the flying dreidels, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, and so on, it also offers a way to access a subject that's otherwise, horrible.
Right.
Yeah. So. Your feedback is really cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that with me.
Sure. Greetings. I am Akiva Kenny Segan, and I am with Under the Wings of God number 48, which was done in 2002. Today is July 23rd, 2012, and as I had to do some frame restoration work, I had taken the work apart out of the frame, moved the plexiglass. I thought a good opportunity to talk about the imagery and do some a short film with some close-up imagery. So it's called Italian Jewish Resistance Hero Eugenio Curiel, Castel Sant'angelo, and my flying chi, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, subtitled Looked On by Alex from Above. And below, as he tries to comprehend this artwork, Alex was a late Viennese Jewish refugee and friend of mine, as was his wife Trudy, also a Viennese refugee from Nazi Austria. And after Trudy died, Alex moved back to Vienna around 1998, and I went to visit him in Vienna for several days in 1999, where I did this drawing, one of 3 drawings I did of him. And one of the drawings was the basis of a linoleum block print I did, which I printed multiple proofs of. Here you see it kind of cut out. It's normally rectangular, but I cut it out here and glued it down. Conservation adhesive, of course. There it is on top, sideways and upside down in blue here. There are also what section is that from? The these are from some part of the linoleum block print. I have to look at it closely, which you also see over there and over there. So, Eugenio Curiel was born December 11th, 1912. His 100th anniversary of his birth will be coming up this December in about 4 months. And he died at around age 33 on February 24th, 1945 in Milano, in Italy. He was a brilliant physicist and noted anti-fascist activist and writer. And he lost his university teaching position, I believe, in late 1938 because of anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish laws decreed by the fascist government in Italy, which banned anyone of the Jewish background, persuasion, or faith, and so on, from being able to teach and or attend public schools. On June 24th, 1939, he was arrested. He was in San Vittore prison and then transferred to a prison on the island of Ventotene around January 26, 1940, which was about a half year later. and he was still spend several more years in prison, at least 3.5, because he wasn't unfreed until after the fascist regime collapsed, and he left the island on August 21st, 1943. After which time he directed underground newspapers, at least 2 prominent ones, and wrote about progressive democracy, his hopes for the future. And he was recognized by some fascist guy on February 24th, 1945, who informed some fascist thug soldier types who then beat him to death. They murdered him, I believe, on a road in or around the city of Milano. So we have Eugenio Curiel here with a hammer and sickle and a Star of David, kind of duality. This sometimes incomprehensible to some people, but Jews, like Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and people of other faiths, are hardly monolithic in beliefs, and Jewish life in pre-war Europe, just like it is now, encompasses a whole range of religious beliefs, non-religious beliefs, secular and political, from left to right and so on. Now and then, similar to the Christian world, even more so in the Christian world, because there's so many more millions more Christians. Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, I had originally planned to do a seagull here, but then I noticed this battery-operated cloppity-clop toy former girlfriend of mine named Linda Burns had sent me as a birthday present, and it was on a bookshelf waiting for its shining moment. And Obi was depicted here with metallic sunglasses, no less, which I glued and stitched on, around flying through space amidst a swirl of Jewish Hanukkah dreidels, the children's spin toy, going all the way around. When I had this has been exhibited only once at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington in 2003, and I gave a talk at the exhibit to a group of young German language and literature majors, as the exhibit had been organized by a German professor at the time named Janet Holmgren, who's since moved to Massachusetts. And I understood afterwards that the students were very perplexed about this work, as if the sanctity of the Shoah, the Holocaust, were marred by my inclusion of humor both in the title and in the imagery itself. But rest assured, humor was enabled many Jews to survive day to day in hiding in ghettos and concentration and death camps of slave laborers. Most perished, but some survived, and there's at least one book out on the use of humor as a day-to-day survival mechanism during the time of the Shoah. I did draw a few gestural kind of seagulls here, in lieu of the one I had planned but didn't do, where Obi Jew-Jew came up. Those look like some other kind of bird. There's a seagull there. The title, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi, came from, I happened to be reading a book by Chinua Achebe at the time, not Hour of God, but one called Things Fall Apart, and I learned about the, at least in the culture with which he was writing about and raised in Nigerian, about the idea of having a personal God. And then the title came to me, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi. Castel Sant'angelo I had seen in Susan Zuccotti's book, which I own a copy of, The Italians in the Holocaust, Persecution, Rescue, Survival, and in which the photo here, 1942 Jewish forced laborers working along the banks of the Tiber River in Rome in the shadow of the Castel Sant'angelo, a photo attribution to Pubblico Photo in Rome. And I got to spend about almost a week in Rome in 2010 on my way back from a teaching trip to Haifa University. It's one of a number of photos I took along the banks of the Tiber River, which I would walk. And there's Castel Sant'angelo in the background. And in the drawing here, it's all pen and ink. And there you have it. The carnival-like mask here derived in part from an anti-Semitic image I had seen somewhere of a man with a grossly elongated nose, as you see there, and the Jew's horns I gave it, like for a masquerade ball. Ditto these kind of fanciful bird like creatures for a carnival, also all drawn from my imagination. A couple of fish here. I don't remember, it looks like I may have drawn this from a shell. I collect shells on walks in them in different cities and countries on teaching and exhibit trips. Orthodox Jews, no relation to Eugenio Curiel, save for the fact that, like Jews everywhere through Europe, similar to the Romani and Sintis people, the Gypsies, they were all targeted for death, regardless of political or religious affiliation or lack thereof. On the lower right and bottom right linoleum block print I had done of a tree and tree branches. And there you have it. Italian Jewish resistance hero Eugenio Curiel, Castel Sant'angelo, and my flying chi, Obi Jew-Jew Kenobi. Thank you, everybody. Grazie.